Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, if you're not satisfied with your love or sex life, I want you to know that I get how painful it is. Sometimes it's hard to know what to do to change things up and get the results you want. But having spent 20 years as a dating and relationship coach, supporting thousands of men to have the relationships and sex they want, I know it's possible for you when you get the right kind of support. As a woman coach, I bring a unique advantage by helping you understand how women think and feel and why they say and do things that can be so frustrating for you. My specialty is being able to tell within minutes why you're losing attraction, trust, or respect from women, and how to turn that around. Even though you've likely been raised to think you should be a man who doesn't need any help, it just doesn't work that way because none of us were handed a guide to love or sex. So every month by application, I open my calendar to a few men for consultations. Men are amazed to walk away from these sessions feeling more confident in and out of the bedroom. Coaching isn't for everyone. I work with men who are willing to be honest about their role in the situations they've created. So if you're still playing the blame game, this isn't for you. But if you're ready to take action and have a love and sex life you feel great about, book a time to meet with me. Go to shanajamescoaching.com/consult and fill out the form to tell me more about you so we can set something up. That's shanajamescoaching.com/consult. Enjoy today's podcast. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I have an amazing guest here with us today, Satyen Raja. Satyen, thank you for coming and being here with us.
My pleasure. Really an honor.
Yeah, so I'm going to dive into a personal topic that Satyen has. By the way, I'll introduce, I'll give you his bio in a moment, but Satyen has a wide range of wisdom and experience, and his company Warrior Sage is really based in this, the ancient trainings of the warrior and of the sage, of the mind, the body, the spirit. So, Satyen really is a master. And when I started to tell him what I wanted to talk about, he said, nope, we don't even have to tell me. Let's just do it in the moment. We're just going to go wherever we're going to go. And so I'm excited to bring up a personal topic and question that I have that I think will be really, really powerful for men in this episode. So for those of you who haven't taken Satyen's workshops or heard of him, let me do a brief intro, and then we're going to dive into some really deep stuff. So I already said, right, Satyen's founder and president of Warrior Sage and is widely respected as a living synthesis of the Eastern wisdom and Western practicality, and like I said, combining the power of the warrior and the wisdom of the sage. He has a lifetime black belt martial artist and a penetrating visionary who compels his clients to harness their greatest obstacles and transform them into their most powerful gifts. And I've seen this in action. Satyen draws from the realms of unparalleled techniques of life mastery, his own profound life experience, and his natural ability to navigate beyond societal, cultural, and conditioned identities to attain peak consciousness. He's a master in a plethora of healing and consciousness-raising modalities. And, he's really unique in that he, again, straddles the realms of business coaching and life coaching and spirituality. So again, Satyen, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Shana, and everyone who's listening. Looking forward to share and connect and raise everything up big time.
Thank you. So, okay, here's my question to start us off. I've studied David Data and your work, and over the years, many other people who've talked a lot about masculine, feminine dynamics, right? I've even I've taught masculine, feminine dynamics as well. So, I know there's something really powerful in people gaining access to these parts of themselves and to recognizing, for women, I can be more feminine. I can open my heart in a certain way. Or for men, I can be more powerful. And then for us all to recognize, we've got masculine and feminine inside us. And, I've seen it be really beautiful, create a lot of spark, a lot of attraction, a lot of intimacy. And I would say the shadow side that I've seen, especially with men, and since this podcast is for men, I want to go there, is I've seen a lot of men who've had this sense of, well, now that's the man I need to be, right? Just like another mask or another way I'm going to put on and power into that keeps them from feeling like, God, I can just, I don't want to say just relax into myself in this kind of lazy way where I'm not stepping into my own power or my own clarity or anything like that, but where it becomes this, I'm going to pretzel myself to try to be someone I think I should be.
Sure.
So I want to hear from you. Maybe this is where we can start. What have you seen as the benefits of people getting in touch with the masculine and feminine, and where are the pitfalls that people fall into?
Yeah, sure. Well, my wife and I, Suzanne and myself, have been students, and David has been our mentor for many, many years, close to 20 years now. Mm-hmm. So we have our own take of those philosophies based on our own 30-year marriage and our practicing and having children and teenagers in our own life. So we have our own transmission in our own way that we experience those. But really, I want to, those teachings I feel are extraordinarily valuable, because they identify that there are differences, not between men and women, but between the masculine and feminine, which is inherent in all of us. And where I'm at nowadays is that at the beginning, when I first started the work, the men were really focusing on developing the masculine traits, and the women were very focused on developing the feminine traits. And that was good for that era 15, 20 years ago, because a lot of men were atrophied in developing these enlightened or spiritual dimensions of the masculine. Yeah. A lot of women were atrophied or weren't even educated in developing the feminine dimension of the enlightened aspect of the feminine. Nowadays, 2017, I believe we need to learn it all. Personally, so for myself, we've divided these masculine, feminine principles, Suzanne and I, in very simple, easy to understand principles. So for the masculine, I call it the masculine PCP muscle. Presence, meaning being fully there, right there, unperturbable presence, really there with your lover, your partner, your mission, your purpose, your children, your life, whatever it is. Presence.
I love that, the whole list, right? Your mission, your lover, your everything, right? All of
right. So there's presence, but then there's another aspect called claim. And claim is knowing what I stand for, what we stand for, who we stand behind, who we stand beside. So that's the claim element. What am I here to do, and being strong in it, in mission and purpose. And then there's the third part of the feminine or masculine triangle I call penetration, meaning entering the world with your action, entering your partner with your love, your connection, your depth. So presence, claim, and penetration equal the masculine triangle of power.
Okay, great.
Now, the reciprocal to that is the feminine triangle of power, and that is invitation, surrender, and expression. So invitation is the willingness to allow, to invite into oneself a lover, a partner, wealth, prosperity, health, whatever, invitation. The other aspect is surrender. Surrender means letting go of the controls of your own reality and trusting a higher source, trusting your lover, trusting wisdom, trusting infinity, trusting the divine. So that's surrender. And then the other aspect of the feminine triangle is expression. The full expression of your emotions, your feelings, your truth, without any type of restriction from your core, from your reality. Now, these dynamics work together. So if I'm more present, it brings up more invitation. If my lover, my partner is more invitational, it brings up more presence.
Right, no matter what gender or what.
Doesn't matter who it is. It does 2 men, 2 women, 2 friends. It makes no difference. So where I'm at today, I believe that we need to cultivate the full spectrum of the PCP, presence, claim, penetration muscle, as well as the delicious art of invitation, surrender, and expression. Because where we're at today as a culture, we need to be wisdom-filled in the power of that whole dynamic, which is within us. And that's the error of the past, where if men are just learning about those masculine principles, then they become fixated in an identity, a new identity. Maybe the old identity being a macho guy, they may let go of that. They may let go of the identity of being a new age flowing guy. But then if you're taking on a new identity again,
yes,
that's good. But it's like any type of art or skill. Like I studied jujitsu. When you're learning something new, you're always going to be stiff, doing more than what you need.
Yes.
It becomes a shell at first. And so you have to go through the stiff, awkward, learning new insight material, new ways of being before it becomes natural. Right. So I think that's where the problem happened, where people get stuck in a fixed role.
Right. Well, right. And I think, awkwardness is one thing, but feeling like making yourself wrong for not living up to an identity, right, is another. Or like you said, taking on another fixed identity when, it's just another identity on top of the deeper part of you that doesn't have to identify. But there is that polarity, right, of, okay, there's this more spiritual or more essential part of us. And then there's okay, we're in a human body living in the world, interacting with other people. And that can get complicated.
The way I look at it is I like to cultivate the whole spectrum of masculine and feminine. And the nature of the situation will bring forth whatever I've cultivated in myself. So to me, the masculine feminine energies are there as artful cultivations, not things to say, now I need to be more masculine. Now I love
that. I love that. Right. An artful cultivation, right? So as you're then approaching a situation or as a challenge arises, it's like you have this whole tool belt or this whole palette in a way of, ways you can respond and to feel empowered.
Exactly. And the more you develop your repertoire of relating through these principles in a conscious way. So there's times where you're practicing. So when I'm doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu drills, there's a movement I got to drill in an isolated circumstance. But when I'm in a sparring match, I'm not thinking about any drills. I just let whatever flow.
Right.
So in the same way, any valuable teaching at the beginning, in the early phases, there's a sense of stiffness, or you're learning something new. You're wearing a new cloak over your old cloak, and you're assimilating these new vibes, these new postures, new way of living, new way of thinking, a new way of breathing and holding your being. But at the end of the day, you got to let it all go when it comes to actual relating.
So do you? That's a good one to go on to, I think, right? Do you have any suggestions for a man who's learning some of these new techniques, or new, I don't want to call them techniques, new ways of being, new possibilities, right? Trying on these new cloaks, and is starting to go out in the world and use them in business and use them in intimate relationship. Like, how do you suggest that someone navigate the awkwardness?
Study well and then let go of all importance. So let me flesh that out a bit.
Yeah.
So we've shared about David Davis' work. His book, The Way of the Superior Man, I highly recommend it. I've given, hundreds and hundreds of copies away throughout the years to good friends.
And that's the one that I would say I've seen some really great impacts and a lot of suffering men who, because they've tried to take it on as this new identity. So again, any way that you have to sort of help a man understand how they could read that book or how they could digest that without suffering.
The way I like to do it is I like to take on the principle of lowering my self-importance around any of it. Whatever I read, whatever I study, I like to take on Bruce Lee's philosophy, which is absorb what's useful, discard what's not, and make it your own. Get creative with it. There's nothing in any book or in any teaching which is meant for everyone. These are flavors to take on. But if we keep ourselves light, like for me, I'm a really devout student. I like to study things deeply whenever I'm studying with any mentor or teacher. I like to go full board on into it. But when it's time in everyday life, I lower the importance around it all.
How do you do that?
Well, first of all, I imagine it's a dial. When I feel I got to be this way, this is really important. It's the importance that is an excessive attribute. It's like anything that you think you really need to do, and I gotta be this to become masculine and to become strong, to become a great lover.
Yeah.
Whatever the philosophy is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. You shoot yourself in the foot when you add importance.
Right.
The way to lower the importance is to recognize, I'm just learning this, I'm absorbing it, but inside, you got to be light with it.
Yeah.
And not serious. You got to almost be like a spiritual fool, like jovial. And
I like that. The willingness to be a fool, right? Or because I've had so many men, I mean, I've worked with men for years, and so many men have this sense of, well, I can't admit to a woman, and this is, again, in a heterosexual paradigm, but it could be to a man also. I can't admit that I'm learning to be more present, or I can't admit that I feel awkward, or I can't say any of these things. And, I've talked a lot with men about the difference between apologetically saying I'm learning something versus, hey, with your idea of lightness and less importance, right? Like I'm learning this new way, or I'm trying this thing and I'd love to experiment with you or explore this with you, or right, that it's not coming from, again, apology or there's something wrong with me.
I never come from any of this work from a remedial or therapeutic or remedy mindset.
Uh-huh.
Remedy anything.
Okay,
this
that's helpful too.
I watch in myself. If we're doing trainings, practices, studies, whatever it is, no matter how good it is,
uh-huh.
the more we're coming from a remedial, or this is to remedy or fix things, which is what every marketing system teaches you, put it out as a problem. But the problem with that is, the real problem is that if you take it on with a remedial or remedy mindset, then there's always something broken to work on.
Yes.
So I don't approach it that way. I look at it as I'm adding to my artfulness.
Again, you said that artful cultivation.
Exactly. I'm adding to the fun repertoire within me. I'm cultivating my fun repertoire with me. Like I'm adding clothes to my wardrobe when I go out shopping. And I'm not doing it because I need a shirt. I have lots of shirts. I'm doing it because, I feel good. I want to have more of this type of, there's a shirt that pops out at the store. That. It's to feel good, not to remedy. Yeah. That's the different remedy.
And that's a huge distinction.
Yeah, remedy inherent has in it self-importance and importance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, and I find in my work with men, there's a lot of, there's a way of working with men, and I think sometimes I feel like, I get to just love men for a living, which feels amazing. And, that doesn't mean that there's no challenging or there's no inviting or invitation to step up, but there's a way of helping dissolve the shame, I think, similar to what you said, through making things less important or saying, you could just bring this. You don't have to hide it or dress it or do anything. But I'm curious what you would say for a man who's coming at this and realizing, as you're saying this, oh my God, I've had myself as really wrong. I've been trying to remedy. I've been trying to fix myself. I've been thinking that I'm not good the way I am and I need, or, things aren't happening the way I want them to. Women aren't responding to me, or again, it could be men aren't responding to me, or my colleagues aren't responding to me. Money's not coming in, or any of those things, or wanting more of those. What would you say to a man who has been holding himself in that way?
I think for myself, I like to take on life as an ever joyful cultivation. Mm-hmm. I could die any moment. We could all pass away at any moment. Yeah. We have this precious time in life that we have, all of us, myself, all of us. And for many years, I was an ultra serious guy coming from a very hardcore martial art tradition. And I found that I sucked the life not only out of myself, but out of my relationships. The more firmer, the more serious I got. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I had a near drowning experience and that really shifted my whole value system. And I started realizing, hold on a sec. I don't have to be so serious. Life is precious. What if I bring my lightness? What if I bring my joy and experience the joy and the gentleness and the lightness? I can still pull out my firm masculine. I can still pull out my firm feminine. I can still pull out warriorship when I need it. But why bother? If I can be in the state of easeful relationship with life, where I'm waking up and life, this is something to be experienced, where I can offer my gifts and receive my gifts and look at this day as a joyful game to play in.
Right.
That was a restricting for me. That was difficult for me because I came from a very hardcore, very hardworking immigrant family. Serious. Got to put, but it had benefits, but it also burned me out.
Right. Of course. I can see that, right? The seriousness and the intensity, and then, right, that, every day there's this, it's like you're climbing, every day is like, climbing Mount Everest or something. There's something so intense.
That gives a false temporary sense of high and energy when you're constantly going for goals, constantly pushing, constantly striving. The term in the millennial language is crushing it. I crushed it. But those who aim at crushing it will end up being crushed. Always. You will be crushed if you have crushing it as part of your value structure. It'll happen sooner or later, because that level of willful intention is a sign of excessive importance.
Yeah.
That's been attributed something. Excessive importance actually pushes the thing away.
Right. I was going to say that some people might say, looking at you, that you had that seriousness, you built your business, you studied in certain ways, and then you were able to relax a little bit more. But so I'm curious what you would say, right? Is it that someone could, from the very beginning of building a business or, finding love, that you can actually take on this perspective even now?
Yes, you don't have to wait. I wished I started way back. Yeah. And for example, now with this new mindset of lowered importance, I still have my goals, my dreams, my aspirations. I work with founders, CEOs who are very, very successful and, who are creating big change in the world with their services and their companies. And what I found is that when they apply and when I apply these principles of lowering the importance, still going for what we want, but dialing down the aggro, dialing down the testosterone, dialing down the excessive pushing, paradoxically, a Taoist factor kicks in. And the great Tao has been spoken about, the Tao of the Tao Te Ching, is that the less pushing, the more things come to you. That's the sage element I'm speaking about, the sage within us, the wisdom. Now, you're either going to come to the sage at the end of your life, or you can come to it earlier, embracing that part in you, which is knowing that wisdom and that people and non-material things are of most value.
Yeah.
And when we can really ground in that, then our businesses can thrive. I've helped guys go from near bankruptcy to make $40 million in a couple of years, like one after, many other people like that. People who've just done supremely well, who were struggling before, or who were doing really good, but in their business, but then their family life, their relationships sucked, or their time with their kids, they didn't even know their kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah. Horrible.
I was down that road. And I know now that the value of this feminine side, invitation, surrender, and expression must also go along with and be cultivated within ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I see that too. And I've done similar, working with men who've either been really successful, but then their personal lives are struggling, or to build that level of success and more income and all of that. And I'm just thinking back to my experiences with those men too, right? Where there's direction, there's clarity, there's purpose, but there is also that, even though the presence you put in the masculine, there's also this way, I think, that it transcends masculine or feminine, right? Where it's just this, ability to be in the moment, to be intimate, to be connected, to see like, wow, what is going to arise here when we're not blocking it, or when we're not, self-consciously trying to manipulate so I can get something to happen here. Then it feels like that's where the kind of magic arises.
What I found is when I'm working and I'm focused, I remove myself from the importance. Although I may have a lot of tasks to do in the day, what's really worked for me is I pull away and I go more into the observer, the overseer within myself. And I commit myself to doing my daily tasks, whatever business things I have to do, with impeccability. So you don't lower the impeccability.
That's interesting.
You actually increase the sharpness of impeccability, crossing your T's, dotting your I's with all the detailed work that needs to be done in a day, but more from the overseer, detached witness position, more so, seeing my daily life, my business as a chess piece, and I'm actually the chess player, and I see my individual life as a chess piece moving around on a board. But that type of healthy detachment, distancing, it's added together with impeccability of follow through and clarity. That combination of lowered importance by being in a distant position, combined with impeccability, boom, that's the biggest secret to getting stuff done and having magic appear in one's personal and professional life, more than anything I've ever seen.
I love that you just got to that, right? Because I think it could seem, before we got to this piece of impeccability, it could seem like, all right, well, if I'm making this less important, I can kind of take my hands off the wheel, or I can, ride this out and see what's going to happen. But right, that overlap, or that juxtaposition of impeccability with the letting go of importance, I've also seen is brilliant.
It sounds like a paradox, because most of the human potential, humanistic, personal development teachings are about going for having your burning desire for your goals, all of those things. I tried that and I did that for years, and I had accomplishment, but what was unseen was the balancing forces that were happening in other areas of my life. My health was deteriorating. I wasn't getting rest. I wasn't getting rejuvenated. My business was booming. I was helping a lot of people, but my wife's wondering, where are you? You're helping the world.
Right. But what about me?
What about me?
What about you? What about the kids? What about your body? Right? Are you going to be here next year to actually live this life with us?
The hardest thing about this type of mindset is trusting that it works. And that trusting that lowering importance on just about everything and increasing impeccability and follow through, the simplicity of that philosophy, the warrior, the sage is pulling back, lowering importance. The warrior is increasing impeccability and follow through. Doing those sides simultaneously, for me, has been a cultivation. I didn't start like that.
Right. So that's another good point, right? That this has to be cultivated. It's not like, oh, you can decide this and immediately you're good at it.
No, you just get better at it.
Yeah.
There's no freaking arrival anywhere. That's the first thing to get out of the way. Okay, I've been working on growing myself for 35 years now. I started hardcore 35 years ago, and I haven't stopped.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be professional guides helping other people with whatever wisdom we have, and we have to be professional students willing to consistently rescript ourselves, our identity, so that it matches our soul's deepest calling. We got to have a restful soul, or nothing else is worth it, really.
Well, and you just brought up that piece of trusting, right, which can be a big one for a lot of people. We could go down that road or not. I'm not sure. Part of me is thinking, okay, right, I have certain ideas about what trust actually is, and then there's a kind of more spiritual trust versus a more logistical or kind of logical trust. But somehow what just flashed to my mind, knowing that you're a dad and I'm a parent, and there are a lot of, fathers out here, one of the things that is most precious to us, right, is our kids. And so what flashed to mind was, right, for me, I just recently sent my kid to kindergarten. It's a school that tends to be underperforming, but some people love it. Some people hate it. There's like, am I doing the right thing for my kid? Right. Yeah. So I just wondered if this could be.
How old's your child?
He's almost 6.
What's his name?
Ari.
Ari, wonderful.
Yeah. He's a little teacher, of course, right? A little spiritual being. But so there's this question of, okay, if we're going to talk about trust, right, let's bring the most precious part of us into the conversation. Can we really trust if we take it with our kids, right? We're helping them make decisions. We're making decisions. What would you say about, you just said, right, you've got to trust, you've got to believe that this is possible. And can we use that example to see, okay, how would you apply trust to your parenting?
Well, trust to me is another way of looking at faith.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I think faith, it has to be in one's own self, like believing, what are my attributes? What are my strengths? What are my virtues? We all have virtues. We all have dark sides. We all have weaknesses. We have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
We can focus on trying to fix and clean up and fill up all those holes within ourselves. Whereas I like to focus on virtues, strengths, and those lift up and bring awareness and bring us the power and the clarity to fill those areas. But once we start with trusting in ourselves, having faith in our own capacity, whatever that is, it's owning it, claiming what you trust in yourself, what you value in yourself. For example, what I trust in myself is when I'm serving people, I give everything I have.
Uh-huh.
I bring my full attention to bear, and all my resources are there for the individual. So I trust my capacity to guide people impeccably and with love and with directness and clarity. Now, having that trust when I meet people and I'm serving people, I give that fully.
Yeah.
I offer that gift, that virtue I have in myself fully. And I think if everyone listening here realizes, what do you really own? What do you really claim? What are you really trustable at?
Mm-hmm.
What do you trust yourself
with? What do you
with?
trust in yourself, right? What do you trust yourself with?
What do you trust yourself with?
Yeah.
And if there's very little, then that's something to grow. And if if there is something you trust yourself with, then develop it. Get it strong. Get it.
And if you're someone who's listening to this, what I trust is that you actually are interested in growing, right?
Yes.
And so then that's the first step too, right? If you don't find that there's a lot that you trust yourself with, or the important things you don't trust yourself with, then that's a capacity to grow versus, as you said before, there's something to fix or there's something wrong with you. But right, how do you actually start to grow that capacity instead?
I've always, because I'm a martial artist, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is what I study, I'm a blue belt, which is the second belt. And I've been at it for a few years. And most of the guys are way younger than me, and they progress faster than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm one of the slower students in the class. I'm at the bottom of the rung, let's put it.
Which I admire, right? You're willing to be a student as well as a teacher and put yourself back into that learning, that humility.
Well, just before I came here for this podcast, I got my ass whipped by my training colleague, and that's so good for myself as a leader to have my ass kicked,
right?
Because it keeps me open. It helps me stay open. It helps me stay humble. It helps me realize I've got so much to learn, and what I know is just a fraction.
Yeah.
So I say to whoever's accomplished here in their own ways, listening, find something that makes you feel that you can, that's going to challenge you to open up to new ways of physical things, new mental ways of thinking, new emotions, perhaps that you haven't find it. Seek Shayna out and learn from her. Seek from people who can guide you to see things that you can't see within yourself. Mm-hmm. That form of active humility, not passive humility, not the one that looks like, oh, I'm such a nice spiritual. No, active humility, which is looking for where can you grow yourself. That's active. That's the form of trust. When you can trust and give yourself that trust, that emanates. People can feel this person trusts themselves. And when they trust, you can trust yourself with something, people will want to give you their trust.
Right. I think that is one of those kind of intangible or, energetic qualities that's really hard to put your finger on.
Yes.
But when you're around someone who trusts themselves, there's this sense of, oh, right. So there's this easeful quality. There's this oh, things are going to get handled, nothing, I feel safe. There's
Yeah.
this, especially as a woman, when a man trusts himself, I feel safer. And then I also feel more able um, to open up, right? To bring the parts of me, I guess that goes along with safety too. Then, right, I can be fully me. I can express the parts of myself. I can trust myself more. I also, I don't see it as a man's job that he's got to trust before I trust so I can open, right? I have to do that work on my own, but we do influence each other for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been interesting and powerful. I'm really going back to, right, these moments of, okay, to take on this mindset of there's nothing to fix here, that this is an artful cultivation, and this idea that you can let go of importance while simultaneously becoming more impeccable. These feel like very, very deep shifts in how a lot of people relate to life that in the moment actually can be pretty simple to apply. And there can also be challenges, like you and I both know, in working with people, right, of a kind of stuckness or a fixed mindset or something that needs to kind of break through or, find its way or go through the darkness or go through the shadow, right, to come out the other side and actually have more choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have great magnificence. We are magnificence, each and every one of us. We each all have a divine purpose, a gift. It comes raw, doesn't come molded or formed exactly.
Mm.
And there's sometimes barriers in the way of cultivating that, simply because that's part of our heroic journey, is to move through those barriers and cultivate our virtues, our deepest capacities. The first place to start for me is asking myself every morning, what must I do today
Mm.
to live, love, and die completely
Huh.
without any regret? I ask this every morning of myself, what must I do today to live, to love, and to die completely without regret? Who knows if I'm going to wake up the next morning?
Right.
Sometimes it's so easy just to, I'm going to go to bed, I'm going to wake up. But
Right. Life's just going to continue. I've got all this time. I can, yeah.
dialing in that question for real rather than going superficial with it. What must I do today to love, live, and die completely without regret? If I ask that of my own self, my own soul, there's an answer.
Yeah.
There's at least one thing to do that must be done today that you wouldn't have done if you didn't ask that question.
Yeah.
Something you would have done with more impeccability or quicker.
Yeah.
Or more immediately, or with more heart.
Yeah. And I like when I'm working with clients to also remind them of, okay, ask a question like that, right? And I like that you just pointed to, not superficially, like really, really deeply, ask the question and then get quiet and wait, right? And your mind, for you who, maybe is more intellectual or mental who's listening, right? Your mind may answer first, but there's often a quieter voice until you cultivate it, right? That comes from your heart or comes from your body or comes from your spirit. And I think that's the place where, as you start to get in touch with that on a daily basis, from what I've experienced in myself and, watching other people go through this, that place, that to me feels like where trust is born, right? Or where there's this kind of grounding that all the neuroses and fears and concerns and everything, we look at another person and what's he thinking of me, she thinking of me, wanting blah, 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 what am I doing, right? That deeper place is actually a part that all of that can then spin on top of, but we don't have to really identify with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. How can people find you? How do you want them to find you?
You're welcome to come to my website, which is Warrior Sage, WarriorSage.com. There's an assessment there. There's different trainings that I offer there as well that people can get invited to as well.
Great. Great. Thank you. Any last words you want to leave men with, or expressions that may not be words? What do you feel called to say?
Whoever you are, wherever you are, as a man to man, I want to send you my love, my honor, a bow of respect. And that's to the essence of who you are. And I know from myself that whoever you are, you have a noble purpose in life, not a superficial purpose. You have a noble purpose. You have a noble character within yourself. You have a noble mission and noble heart. I love and I invite you and I challenge you to love and cultivate and own and claim that noble being that you are, the noble warrior sage that's already within you. And just allow that part to expand and radiate and fill the room wherever you are today with the presence of the warrior and the sage that's inside of you. And just do that and watch what miracles start to unfold from the depth of who you are.
Thank you. You listening don't have the vantage point I have because I can see Satyen, but it was really beautiful to visually witness you drop in the moment to kind of, call that from this deeper place in yourself. And part of what I love about you is the humility, or that way that what I just heard you say, you're connecting with each man out here, man to man, in this way of recognizing, right, that deeper place, that deeper purpose. And so for you listening, if I guess what I would say is I invite you, right, take a little bit of time after you're done listening to this and actually just sit and be quiet and see what starts to shift and what desires start to arise and what feelings start to happen, and and really, really allow that space each day to touch into this deeper part of yourself and be guided by that. Thank you, Satyen.
You're welcome, Shana.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.